The toxic workplace. So I've both witnessed and been victim to more than my fair share of toxic behaviour and insidious bullying in various places, which is why I decided to make a series of videos that is both a result of those experiences and many years of research and understanding what looks like perfectly innocent behaviour which leaves victims financially broken and psychologically scarred. So I am Samantha Thomas, founder of this channel and an unknown website called Embrace Life UK. I'm hoping to change that. I've been a health and wellness coach for more than 8 years, following a certification I earned as a personal trainer, which led me to growing my knowledge in exercise physiology and nutrition. Before this, I've worked in many places while studying psychology, criminology, and antisocial behaviour, with the goal of being able to move into an academic career. This hasn't happened, potentially still a work in progress. However, developing from personal trainer to health and wellbeing coach and having a good foundation knowledge of psychology, both through study and applied learning, I came to appreciate that as I developed myself from personal training to health and wellbeing coaching, what really influences and drives behaviour, which includes what really influences people in the workplace also. So whether it's about getting basic needs met or trying to reach our potential, there is a reason driving both desire and behaviour. This reason affects the professional environment, leaking into or from our personal experiences, and can be both empowering or extremely damaging to individuals and businesses alike. The workplace, in my experience, has always been and will probably always have elements of toxicity. The level of toxic exposure, however, shouldn't be detrimental and life-affecting long-term or so intense short-term that it's destroying company and individuals' reputation, causing trauma in victims. The toxic workplace behaviour collection is an amalgamation of behaviours I have seen used to covertly manipulate and bully people in the workplace more than 4 instances in various industries over the last 12 months. With my filter and awareness, I created 3 clusters of micromanagement traits that will help you discern patterns and degrees of safety as individuals or as HR professionals trying to stamp out workplace bullying and working out how you can protect the business and the human beings within the business from behaviours that serve first and foremost an individual's needs. Where there are people getting hurt, there is poor leadership, and this affects everyone, including bystanders. I have 3 clusters and overarching terms for them all. You may be surprised, you may disagree, you may agree. You may have experience, you may have seen this elsewhere, you may have been a bystander at one point. Please don't feel guilty, we've all done it. And it's a very compromising and difficult position to be in, because your own safety, financial safety, your family's well-being, etc., has to be taken into account as well. So it's being by no means a judgment. But this is where I encourage you to get out of the echo chamber and share your thoughts and comments below, and even challenge me on what I've said and what I think, because it's really important that we collectively deal with these things as opposed to just hide behind grey rocks. Yes, that's a psychological term. Or hide behind a grey rocking type situation where actually nobody says anything and this continues to permeate and hurt people and really hurt usually the most vulnerable people in society. Toxic workplace behaviours, cluster 1, look at me. So this is a deeper dive into all about me experience of a bully. So this is a person who has, in every conversation they join, done it bigger, better, grander than all the rest. They have the t-shirt and have become the authority. And the flip side of this is they will underplay their grandiosity whilst virtue signalling it simultaneously. That's not all the time, but there's different levels of being able to portray a particular image. And people who have learned to do this as their behaviour have learned to do it in situations where that makes them basically very successful at doing it whilst feeding their ego. So this can sound like accusatory comments or questions that seemingly, if intonated differently, could sound caring and are tonally designed to elicit a negative feeling within you. That was a good mouthful, wasn't it? So I'm going to go through the conversation bit in a minute, but let's just go through these whole steps one by one and really discover what comes up here, because I found this really interesting. A lot of these were until recently things I'd never even thought of, but now that I've got the language and the understanding to be able to decipher what these are and what they look like, I can be a little bit more helpful in helping you work out what these are, why they are, and what they look like, rather than just looking like innocent but behavior that doesn't feel quite right. So, for example, you work in a hybrid role and you work across companies, various company sites. You complete work at one of the sites and finish a bit earlier than anticipated. So rather than hanging around and getting in the way of the normal day-to-day function of that site, you decide to leave early and finish your day at home. Don't forget you're a hybrid worker. This should be okay. You know, there's a level of autonomy there with you. If you go and do something on site, once you've finished on site, you should be able to go. If there's no room for you to be there or no need for you to carry on staying there, there should be no problem with you heading off back home to finish your day at home. There should be no problem with that whatsoever, unless it's been explicitly said to you that, oh, actually, finish on site, you've got to go back to the office. So you leave early and you decide to go and finish your day at home. So you get a phone call then from your boss or your manager or whoever it is that oversees your function, what you're doing, and you answer in your normal polite way. Hello, how are you? And straight away you're greeted with an energy that is both accusatory, very high in emotion, but they say really things that's really hard to pick them up by. For example, is everything all right? Is your child or your spouse? I thought you had an emergency. And that kind of just comes out of nowhere. And then you explain that everything's okay. But because you've understood that actually, where did that come from? It sounds like they care, but it sounds also like they're checking up on me. What is this all about? It tends to elicit feelings of complete and utter confusion. So it can leave you blindsided and emotionally up in the air. And really just starting to think, do I really need to look over my shoulder? Do I need to be, as soon as I do something, let somebody know exactly what I'm doing at the moment that I've done it? Can't people just email me and say, oh, by the way, is everything okay? Is everything okay? You left site early, or send you a text message? Well, when somebody has to phone you with an accusatory but polite words as if they care, that to me is just a little bit weird. That could have been done in a text message saying, oh yeah, we saw you left early, is everything okay, can you just check in? That would have been a lot easier in that situation. But I have found that a lot of managers do like to have this idea that they know where you are at every time of day, especially if you do work hybrid or across sites. And some don't mind, some really don't care as long as the job's getting done, but they may have a manager themselves that's running through them, actually expecting them to do stuff like this when actually they might not bother. So it might feel like it's coming directly from your manager, but it might not be. It might be coming through your manager from their manager. And this is where you've got to be really careful. And this is why I say look for stuff in clusters rather than for individual behaviours. I've certainly had this happen to me, and it was the most bizarre thing I'd ever experienced. And it kind of knocked me sideways for the rest of the day. So the productivity that I would have had for the rest of that day completely went by the wayside because I was trying to emotionally stick myself back together, thinking, well, what just happened? What does she mean? Is my child okay? What would make her think that anything wouldn't be okay? You know, it was just all a little bit odd. If you've got an example of anything like this, again, leave it in the comments below. Or if you can relate to something similar, or if you've got a similar experience, or if there's something that you're just not sure, feel free to comment below and let us know below, because again, like I said, the whole point of this is to share experiences, and the more we share and the more information is out there, the more we can make sure changes happen that are positive in the workplace for people who go to work and for people who manage people in work as well. Because sometimes it's not always your manager directly, and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's senior leadership, sometimes it's just management teams. And it's nice to know and really understand where that's coming from and what's driving those things, because they're just not healthy. Certainly not in my opinion. You may have a different opinion, which is fine. Please share that below as well. The next one is peacocking, and that's seeking attention by any means possible. Some people are flamboyant naturally, and others do it for attention. It's completely and utterly manufactured. So it can be seen then competitively. If you get a new starter in the office, for instance, and this new starter naturally has a more, I don't know, flamboyant look overall about them, but their personality isn't necessarily massively flamboyant, or there's nothing off about them. It's clearly just a little bit who they are. And then suddenly somebody else starts to kind of mimic that there, or really highlight the fact that they're like that all of a sudden. Or someone that just, does that, and but then tells you about it as well, like, oh, look at these new boots I got, look, and then really goes into detail like how to show you how good these new boots are. I mean, I've seen all sorts of examples of this, and it's like literally a 5-year-old showing off that they just went shopping with their mom. It's just a little bit odd. And again, on its own, this could be a completely innocent behavior. It could just be something that, someone is struggling to get some need met elsewhere in their life, and this is how they're doing it. It's not necessarily a tool of bullying or manipulation, but along with other things, it could be put together as a way of kind of really controlling people's perception of who they are, so that they think they know what other people think they are, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm the first to admit that when it comes to clothing, I'm a bit of a peacocker, as you can tell. I mean, I have a bright yellow jacket on now, or a cardigan, or whatever you want to call it. I don't like to be boring. I worked in fashion for 10 years. I grew up really following, I won't say following fashion necessarily, I was more into alternative trends. But I really liked playing with fashion, and I understood from a very young age that fashion was a really good way of moulding your identity. So for some people, that's all it is, and that's fine. It's innocent. That doesn't make them guilty of being bad people at all. But again, for those that don't really have the personality or the anything else to match what it is they're seeming to do, then that is a bit of a red flag. And sometimes it's unobvious, sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes they do it so you'll gravitate towards them and start asking them questions, which means you've come to them, which makes them always look innocent, because you came to them first. I've got to say, me wearing bright coloured clothing has never made people come and talk to me. Which to me, I'm an introvert, is a good thing. I like that. But for some people, that's exactly what because they have these grandiose and bigger personalities, and that's exactly what that will do. Along with a personality trait, it will draw people in quite naturally and be quite charismatic, which in and of itself isn't a problem. But along with other things and potentially other manipulative behaviours, could actually be a real big warning and a red flag. So an example of this is there was a dating practice called peacocking. And I think this was made quite big back in the late 90s, probably early noughties, by an author called Neil Strauss, an author and a journalist called Neil Strauss. I know this because a former boyfriend of mine introduced me to this whole concept, because he was a geek. He was a geek that didn't know how to basically attract women. And then we had this we met because he kind of used some of these tactics, as it were, a bit of guy liner, a bit of a look that he felt would give him just a little bit more confident. And to that end, that was fine. And that was fine. And it wasn't But the insidious side of where that goes on is it draws people in, and then you're supposed to kind of make derogatory comments about them, while at the same time as complimenting. So you're always complimenting, but not complimenting somebody at the same time. So something always feels off, but you can't say, well, it feels off because they gave me a compliment, because that sounds really, really weird. But if it feels off, they gave me a compliment, but actually that compliment didn't actually really feel like a compliment. The intonation of it and everything else around it didn't feel like the words that were said. That in itself, that starts to be a bit of a red warning again on its own. That can be really difficult to explain, and it can be difficult at all to see anything wrong with that, and there might not be. But along with other stuff, and if there's a few things that just feel like, well, it's really difficult to explain because if I try and explain it, it sounds like this person's really nice and caring. But actually, they do all these things in a very uncaring and very snide, horrible, ugly way. That starts to be able to differentiate the behaviour from the way that it feels, and understand that actually these behaviours, while they can look the same, don't feel the same depending on how these behaviours are delivered. And that is really, really important. And so they're all about me, and this is, let's go back to the beginning and have the conversation, where every conversation that is within earshot of this person will become an invitation for them to engage and share an indulgent anecdote. Again, mainly to elicit an emotional response of care or adoration for them. And this could be, you've got a colleague talking about another colleague in a very caring, supportive way. And this person hears that, and they get on and kind of will steal the limelight, as it were, of the whole conversation, and make that the idea of whatever happened to this colleague that they were all being caring and supportive over, bring that care and support over to that person because that person had a similar or the same kind of circumstance happen to them, and then it becomes all about them. To me, that's just weird because it takes the limelight off the person that was the subject matter in the first place, that was all about giving them empathy and showing care and consideration towards them. And all that care and consideration and empathy is literally just being sucked out of that facility and then given to this person who wants you to feel it for them. That to me is a huge red flag. Like I say, I'm not this psychology expert here. I would say, along with other behaviours. And if you see this and if you feel this and it's not feeling right and you're feeling very uncomfortable around it, I would say try and find a professional psychologist to speak to about these things, to basically keep your head straight about them, because this stuff can really, really mess with your head. And that for me is the really important message and takeaway. Is when you start to see these and feel these and something's just not right, but you sound incredibly ridiculous when you try and say it out loud, it's time to see someone who, from a professional point of view, will understand exactly what you're saying, and you will get the empathy you deserve, and the understanding you deserve, and to be able to put all this into context so that you know what's going on without second guessing and questioning yourself, because this is where the psychological damage is really done and really felt by people. And this is also a way of collecting. There's a term in psychology called flying monkeys, and we hear about it a lot across the social media. Certainly I do, so probably because of all the research and stuff that I did. But the flying monkeys are the bystanders, the people who will stand by and watch what's happening, but because they're not directly involved necessarily, they don't feel it, well then they just won't see it. And because they don't see it, it's almost like, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that, it's just harmless fun, it's just banter, it's just you're taking it a little bit personally, you think you're a little bit sensitive, etc. All that kind of stuff, not meaning to be harmful, but they end up being really, really harmful because you feel even more isolated and alone when you try and speak about it in work. So my advice is, if this is happening to you and you feel like it's happening to you and you know where to go, try and get some help outside of work. Try and get someone outside of work to have that conversation with you, so that you don't feel like you're going mad. That's the idea, is that you feel like you're going mad and then they've completely got you wrapped around their little finger and there's nothing you can do about it. And you will end up going less and less and less and more of a shell of yourself, while they become bigger and bigger and bigger. What's called emotional vampires. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, give it a thumbs up and share with others to find it useful too. If you want to learn more about leadership, behaviour, communication and well-being and how to do it well, subscribe to my channel and please find all our company details in the description below along with links and references. And don't forget to look through our growing catalogue of videos to help you all lead well. Take care, be alert, look out for one another, be safe both physically and psychologically.